Welcome to Swimming with Sepsi, where we break down various life topics, bring on inspirational guests to talk about their lives, their experiences, and encourage you to swim through your own inner thoughts, emotions, and feelings to inspire a change within you that will hopefully lead to an outer change in your own personal reality. I ask that throughout this episode and all future episodes that you come with an open mind, an open heart, and a willingness to look at yourself in a different way and to look at the world in a different way. I'm grateful for each and every one of you that's tuned in this current moment, and I look forward to sharing many more moments with you. And with that, let's dive on in. Plan that.
Yeah.
That was like right last second.
I just looked at you in your eye, and we just went.
One eye? My third eye?
Your third eye, yeah.
Thanks, dude. Is it wide open?
It's kind of got some, goop on it. You should try and clear that up.
I think that was accurate. I will work on cleaning that up. Appreciate that. Thanks for bringing that to my attention.
Gotcha.
Welcome to Soully Living Podcast with your host, me, Joshua Sepsi.
Joshua Sepsi.
Yo.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Yeah.
Give it up for the boy.
Yeah. And your host, that is Co.
No, don't go back on what you said. All right, guys, creative control. I'm taking over right now. All right, welcome to Soully Living, everybody, with your co-host, Joshua Sepsi.
You didn't do the host part. You skipped that part.
I did skip it. Because, see, I'm already fumbling the ball.
That's all right.
It's all right. You can take the control again. I don't want to be the leader.
Nicki, Tama, Chesky. Yeah.
Thank you.
I actually had her do a guided meditation, and it was pretty good.
Oh, wow. Thanks. That's the first time I'm hearing you say that. Yeah. Thanks.
I didn't tell you the day of.
No. It was just complete silence after. We just jumped into the podcast.
Sorry. I thought I did.
It's all good. I've been wondering. No, I'm just playing. No, it's all good. Sometimes I like to not know what people think about my performance or something.
Yeah.
Because then it, I don't think about it, and then it's maybe it's none of my business. Maybe I don't need to know.
Maybe you don't. But I always like knowing because it's like constructive criticism.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if it's to improve, yeah, I'd be down for that.
Yeah. Today's episode, we're actually getting to along the lines of something along that. We were talking about sound and frequency and how it affects the body. We're going to go into kind of like a wide overview here. So we're going to talk about obviously what is frequency. We'll go into a little bit about law of vibration, which is one of the natural laws, universal laws, we want to call them. And then we'll also go into something I was looking into recently. A man by the name of David Hawkins, who did a study on emotions and frequency, which I thought was really cool. And then we'll talk a little bit about kind of the body functions with that. But then we'll also going to loop it into how you can utilize frequency and how you can utilize your understanding of frequency and vibration in your daily life, so that way you can kind of overcome and actually start to transmute and understand how these things move together. So, with that in mind, earlier I asked Nicki what frequency was. I'm not going to put you on blast. But it was kind of funny as we
it was
coming
hilarious.
up with the the definition of it.
It was so funny. But it was like, it was clear in my mind. I know what I wanted to say, but then like coming out with it and like formulating the words, it was hilarious. I was just like, frequency is oh yeah, it's
it's like
it was hilarious. But like in my head, it was like there.
Yeah,
but then
you formed it.
Yeah.
So, for those of you that don't know, I mean, everyone says frequency this, frequency that, vibration this, vibration that. Basically, what a frequency is if you know a waveform, a sine wave, triangle wave, there's different kind of waveforms. However, the most common and the one that moves through everything here is a sine wave. And so sine wave, what a frequency is the time that it takes from the peak of the wave to reach the trough of the wave. So when you have a longer frequency or a lower vibration frequency, lower frequency means you're not as often seeing the peaks and the troughs. So you would see a peak here, and then maybe down the road you'll see a trough like this far, and so on and so forth. With a higher frequency, it's going very fast. And we've talked a little bit about frequency on a couple of episodes here. We may not have gone in deep into it, which is why we're doing a little bit of a deep dive. And the crazy thing that I found when I found out about this, it blew my mind. I knew like early on, we're all one, right? And there's some sort of, there's some connection to even inanimate objects. But what blew my mind when we started learning about, do you remember learning about like atoms in school?
A little bit. I mostly, not really in school. I feel like I mostly learned a lot about
You didn't
atoms.
have a science class?
I did, but I feel maybe I didn't.
What are they teaching out here in Arizona? What are they teaching out here in Arizona?
Some BS, dude.
Damn.
No, I don't know. Maybe I did learn. I think I feel like I understood it better when my grandpa would tell me about it, because he was like really into science, and so was my dad too. But like the way my family, I guess, would break it down made a lot more sense than school. I feel like they would be like more ambiguous about it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they would like explain what atoms do or what atoms are, but then it would be like, okay, and you know what I mean? Like they wouldn't like go deep into like what it all means.
Well, yeah, they're not going to do that. They're just going to be like, here's what atoms are, and then we're going to teach you a formula so you can figure out how atoms combine together, and you take 2 hydrogen atoms and an oxygen atom, and you got water, and then you can take the covalent bonds. You get into chemistry and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Anyways, so at its base point, they found out, I mean, scientists know this, everyone should know this. If you don't, here's a little fun piece of information. Everything in the world moves constantly. Everything. All these little atoms on this microphone are slowly moving very, very quickly and very densely and very tightly packed together that they're just almost seem like they're not moving. So I guess it would be a lower vibration, not a higher vibration. It's like just solid dense, right? But if you go deep down into it, they're all moving. Everything, including in my hands, including all the cells in my body, the organisms, everything, it has some sort of vibrational movement. Thus, it has a frequency, because frequency is how often, vibration is the movement of the frequency that it has. So, for example, we're sitting at 110 hertz. It's very slow moving. It could be something denser, like a subwoofer or a kick for sound, if we're talking about sound. I guess sound would be the best way to kind of gauge it. Then when we get into higher frequencies, you think of like, a really high-pitched tone, like people breaking glass with the high-pitched tone. What you're doing is you're vibrating the particles so much that it shatters. The frequency can match it, and then it shatters the glass. and it goes past its ability to hold that vibration, and it explodes. Hold that frequency and it explodes.
So you know how in like science there's like a melting point,
Sure.
a freezing point. So
Yeah.
could we even draw a conclusion that everything has like a point of
Yes.
like how much vibration we
and-
can hold?
Yeah. So if you were to like, well, I would hypothesize this. I'm not going to say for sure, but I would say yes in that way, because if you've looked at like cymatic frequencies and the way they hold, cymatics is really the study of sound and frequency on particles. I believe that's right. So when you have like you've seen where they have the, it's like I don't know if it's like a piece of sheet metal, and then they pour sand on it, and then they use like a thing and they vibrate this certain tone. So they have like a tuning fork or something that's at say 400 hertz, and when you vibrate it, it creates a pattern. So to your point, if you were to take sound and literally inject it into something, it could, if you have it going high enough and you find the right frequency match to something, you could make it shatter or implode it, or do something with it, which is why the study of sound on cancer cells, for example, is a great example, where they're trying to pinpoint the frequency and the sound frequency to match the right part of the cancer cells to explode that, so they're not reproducing and creating. So there's definitely studies on that as well. So yes. And so the use of this, though, I mean, is when we're thinking about sound coming in and things like that. So when you're listening to music, there's one big thing, like, which is why I've shifted, I guess, my taste in music to I'm going to say this because everything that I also say is a sound, is a frequency, is a vibration. And if we're all part of it, then it's affecting all of our particles, right? No matter, I mean, you can say, oh, we're, 80% water, or 70, it's like 70% water. Yeah, of course, sound is going to affect us. But it also affects every other part of your cells, not just because you're made of water. It's like everything. So the music you listen to and the lyrics you're hearing, although you may subconsciously may not believe it, it's still affecting you when you're saying it or you're repeating it. So when you're talking about heavy rap music, when they talk about those certain things, there's an artist, D1, who talks about this and preaches about this. He's like, you guys are just creating the same problems over and over again by rapping about drugs, war, alcohol, gun violence, things like that.
Is it like they're creating that reality and speaking that into existence?
You don't know it, but oh, this is just a sick beat, right? It's the frequency and the vibration that's like, dang, this is a tight beat. And so then you put words on top of it, and it's almost like you're saying a mantra at that point. So I've shifted a lot of my music to listen to things that are more upbeat, positive, things that are saying something like that. And then some that don't even have lyrics. Then you're just kind of vibrating with the music and you're flowing with it, like electronic music. I mean, so definitely it's found its way into my life where it shifted that. So when we talk about the natural law of vibration, we're going to move here to the next topic, because frequency is that's really it. There's nothing more to frequency besides that. We'll get into what else frequency can affect bodily wise. But that moving into the law of vibration is kind of another key point to hit on.
Really quick before we move into this topic, just to kind of help people maybe visualize it too, because you were kind of explaining in a way where like mentally it made me think about how sound affects like your environment even more. Because if you just break it down to being like, we were talking about this before the podcast, but like vibration, if you just like literally think of it as vibration and you just see like the waves ripple out away from you, I feel like that's an easy way to just remember like everything I say has that frequency and it's spilling out around me and it doesn't go away. It just
Right.
eventually like either slows down or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
it's like a drop of water, right? All your voice, even your thoughts, becomes a drop of water in your mental and emotional capacity. So the way you think, the way you talk to yourself, that then reverberates internally and also reverberates externally because then you're seeing it in your reality and creating those thoughts. So yes, that's a good way to visualize it. Like if you just start to visualize the things that you say as sort of like a waveform that moves, that emanates as like a ripple of water in your consciousness, in your awareness. Because if we were to think about it, we're almost like fish surrounded by oxygen and something we're swimming in. It's less dense than water, but it does carry the energy, carry the vibration, because energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can be shifted into different areas, different frequencies. It can be slowed down, it can be sped up, it can be manipulated, but it can't be completely destroyed. There's always little particles that are moving it may seem like it's destroyed, but they're just so tiny and probably in a different span of frequency that we can not see. We'd have to use special equipment to be able to see it. So that's one thing to really think about when we're going into law of vibration and with your own personal life, because it kind of ties into also, law of karma. These things come back, that energy doesn't stay, which is why you do something wrong. Use the P. Diddy case. You do something wrong, over time, it's somehow going to come back. Right? And and then it continues to add up. And it has to correct itself. Right? Because the vibration at what's happening in the external reality is not matching what is coming out in whatever this person is doing. So, for example, let's see. Let me just to clarify that, because this ties in with law of vibration. If collectively we're at a point where we want to see more truth, where we're digging for answers, where we're trying to find out, which is where we are right now, as a collective. We're trying to learn more about ourselves. We're also trying to learn more about just survivability, saving the earth. This is kind of what I see in my reality. It could be different for many people because many people decide to watch and look at different things, which also goes to this sense of law of vibration. Stay with me here. If you are one that is talking about these certain things, you want to do this or you want to do that, or you're preaching this, or you're talking about, publicly, I guess I would say, and then you're saying, I want to save this, and you want to be kind, and you want to, do these things and have good times with people. But then on the back end, your actions and the things you say behind scenes are totally different. You're colluding that, and somehow it has to correct itself to find where the right vibration is. So if the right vibration is actually a lower vibration in what you believe, and you're stuck in these lower frequencies of like anger, grief, sadness, depression, the universe will start to correct and start to bring into this fear, and your reality will start to look that way. So this could be a terrible example. We might have lost some people on this one. But it's just for like Diddy's case, the law of karma, when that was coming around, when he was doing all those things and that was all happening, the universe goes, well, we are looking for truth at this time. So this hidden stuff, these things that are going on, these scandals, these lies, all this stuff is not matching what the collective vibration is looking for. So we have to bring that out to light.
So you're almost saying like the collective vibration sets the tone for
Correct.
Everything else?
Correct, yeah. So which is why when I did the episode of like humanity's potential, we tie it to the space of frequency. If we were all to kind of match or be close enough, we only really need like 80%, which is, a couple billion people, which you already have like a couple billion people that listen to certain music like all the time. Like, I got 1 billion streams or something like that. So
It's
anyways,
insane.
if you have that collectively on like the intention of what we're looking for, if we're striving for some sort of peace, that means that the universe is going to match that because of who we are and we're so dense. Think of us like bees around a hive, a honeycomb, right? The earth is like our hive. We're all vibrating. If we're all vibrating on a same intentional frequency, which means like, for example, one of high frequencies that David Hawkins talks about is peace, love. There's peace, love. You get up to like enlightenment, those kind of things. Those are like really high. But when you're all intentionally seeking that, then the outer reality and systems that have been created that may have been made in a lower frequency of, let's look at our history, because this is basically natural law of vibration right here. When we look at our history, we were vibrating out of survivability, fear, trying to, make our lives comfortable. We didn't want to die a lot, so we're going into trying to search for all these different medications, different techniques, different ways of survivability, right? It was very based here. When we talk about Maslow's hierarchy, we're really food, water, shelter. We're still there in some parts of the world. A lot of places, even in the U.S., deal with a large population of homelessness. But it is shifting. It used to be worse, and now it's starting to move. And if we were able to be collectively in sync, with an intentional, high vibrational intention of peace and love, all of the things that are going on in the background, all the lies, the scandals, which is why that's been coming out over the last few years, those all have to come to light and they all have to disappear because that does not hold the right vibration. And so it's slowly making its way up. We're getting into right now what I would say is a space of forgiveness and acceptance. So we're reaching like a neutral point, which is why there seems to be like a stalemate with a lot of things going on. Sure, there's like major wars. There's a lot of genocides and things that are actually happening out in the world right now, which that will rectify itself. It may not seem like that in the moment, but it will. And it's really hard to talk about. And I probably could have just put myself on blast by saying that. But when we think about it, the duality of it means that everything is just as it is and as it needs to be. Super weird. But that is the law of vibration. Because if you were to think about a music and a song, although you have all these beautiful high notes, what's a complement to a high note but a low note? A lower vibration, a sub, something that's in there, that's just resonating. It sounds weird to think about, but we are living in a space of duality, and we have to kind of accept that. And only when we come to a space of acceptance can we then start to rectify the issue. People don't want to be in a space of acceptance and a space of forgiveness and a space of moving towards one thing. They're always fighting for their own sort of intentional purposes to try and make the outer world match what their inner vibration is. And that's really hard to live in that, to try and be like, this is how I vibrate internally. And you may be vibrating, you may be at a lower frequency. You may be vibrating out of fear. You may be vibrating out of grief. You may be vibrating out of like sadness or shame, which on David's thing is the very lowest space of consciousness. The very lowest.
Shame
is at like, he puts it at like 20 hertz. So, which is why when you're in that, you feel like, you're in that depressive state, you're in that sad state, you're in that, space of shaming yourself. You just literally feel like this. Just down, hunched over, don't want to do anything. Restricted.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, when you're trying to have the outside world be that way, it's never going to feel comfortable. You're trying to justify your wounds and the things that are going on internally and force the external world to match it instead of working on how I can be comfortable with myself internally so I don't have to try and force the external world to be anything. Because as you do that, your inner vibration, your inner work is slowly moving you up vibrationally. Right, so this is where we're starting to get into emotion and frequency understanding here. You can kind of follow how I'm moving through these things. So as you go through that internally, with the natural law of vibration, your external world will start to match how you are vibrating. We're ass backwards right now. We're like, this, and this is my beliefs. Well, I got to project it on the world and blah, blah. And you got to be this way for me to be comfortable. We've lived in that way for too long. It's got us nowhere. All it's done is done this between us, pit us against each other, allowed other people in power to manipulate those feelings, manipulate those emotions, turn them into some different things so that way they can make a move that they wanted to do. They're playing chess while we're over here playing checkers. So we have to understand how the actual nature moves to be able to change the external world that we're seeing in our reality every day. And that starts with understanding the vibrational frequency that you sit in daily, like your emotions, your feelings, the things you say to yourself, the things you talk about, the things you actually believe. Like when I'm joking around with you and shooting the shit and we're, going back and forth on, what it feels like, Maeve to someone else be like, well, dude, you're insulting the shit out of her, or she's insulting the shit out of you. You guys are just talking mad smack. But you notice after all that, I'm telling you, like, nah, dude, I'm just fucking with you. Like, this is not real. Like, I always try to do that, even though it may get annoying at me saying, like, hey, dude, I hope you know, like, because I don't mean it at all. It's a joking around kind of thing that, I mean, good camaraderie has. But I do that with a lot of people, like a lot of people that I'm close with, actually. So, you're welcome. Love you, dog.
Love you, bro.
But I always will let you know, because I know not necessarily the repercussions, but like the energy that gives off, even when I'm just joking around saying that, right? Like your cells don't know that I'm joking. So if I were able to like spin it, be like, okay, we're gonna laugh about this, but I'll be like, hey, bro, but like for real though, I actually do really care about. Like, I love all your input, the feedback, the stuff that you do. Like, I like really appreciate it, and I try to do that with everybody that I mess with like that. Some people I don't have to do it, but I just do it just because of the energy wise. So when we get into let's get into more like the emotion. I started kind of nitpicking on it. I've kind of weaved everything together. Do you have any questions? I feel like you have great collective questions. Like,
Thank
some
you.
of those good ones are.
Well, man, don't ask if I have questions, because I had so many questions, but you were explaining it so well. I just, a lot of the times if I'm waiting, usually you answer the question, but there's just things in my mind where I want to understand how the universe works in these ways, because if you scientifically think about it, it's logical. It makes sense.
Correct.
But in you explaining like universal law is dope too. Like, but I want to ask questions like why. I'm always in that why mind frame.
Sure.
So
yeah.
like,
what do you got?
Well, cause like if you're thinking of things in the manner of, okay, my frequency that I hold internally in my minds, within my thoughts, my words.
Sure. Like
what I'm made of, what are my atoms creating like a pattern, and what am I like vibrating out to the world, and how is that like gonna show me, like return back to me, and how's that energy gonna come back to me and ripple back to me.
Okay.
But I was gonna say, but dude, like my question is, let's say I have the best frequency, best outlook on life. I'm holding an intention of bringing light, making change, just having like higher vibrational thoughts. But that still can't stop like bad things from happening, like
Correct.
coming back to you.
Correct.
And like I just wanted to like like, because my mind, like, immediately goes there when I think about frequency and emotions.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I immediately think, like, but it's, like, what am I doing wrong? And I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. Like, what am I doing wrong? And, like, because you talked a little bit about, like, correction, too, and, like, vibration.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just don't want to blame myself when, like, bad things happen, but I can only take accountability for my choices and my decisions and, like, how I'm feeling. And I was just going to say, like, but there's just things that we can't control. So I want to know, like, just my mind wants to know, like, why and, like, where do these things come from? Bro, I'm so sorry, Josh. If you guys are listening and not watching, Josh just did the funniest thing. We had a little talk before, but I'm trying, bro. I'm trying so hard.
I know you are,
I'm trying
dude.
so hard.
All right,
Yeah.
anyways, I'm sure if you listen, you know Nicki loves to say like.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
We're working on it.
But
so I did a little. We developed a little sign signal, and as she was going on that, I was just doing it really low.
Because I saw something moving, and I was like, "It's like, what is it?" That was hilarious. But
So your question on, so your question on overcoming, or just obstacles coming into your life, even though you may have the highest of intention and highest good.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of what, like,
It's
how do
basically
you manage it, or how do you transmute it, or
my question,
is
I
there
guess,
a way to stop it? Is that?
I know those are the questions I have answers to, but I want to know why. Like, and it can we break that?
Why does it happen?
Yeah, can we break that down vibrationally?
Yeah.
Because we almost did with duality.
Well,
Yeah.
exactly. That's exactly what it is. So when I was saying that part where Ram Dass's guru, there's a great video on YouTube from the After School production, and it's a Ram Dass kind of speech. It's 15 minutes long. If you have time, take a look at it. It's probably one of my favorites to describe this sort of duality. This sort of, even though I'm trying to do good or wanting to do good or have the intention of doing good, there's so much evil, that's so much stuff that's going on around in the world all the time. And what can we do about it? There seems like there's no hope. There's a space where it comes into, even in David Hawkins' consciousness, vibration, frequency of emotion. One of the ones he has is acceptance. And that's a neutral. That's right in the middle. He puts it around 400 hertz, 500 hertz. And basically, it's an acceptance of the duality of nature, right? So there is the law of vibration, that as you're, vibrating higher, more good things are going to come into your life than the bad things. However, what this means is there's still going to be bad things, because that's just the way that it works. The yin and the yang. There's the good and the bad. Just like I said, you can't have a high vibrational frequency without having some sort of low tone octave. Mm-hmm. They all are together. For example, if I have a 150 octave or 150 hertz note, which, by the way, hertz is just a fancy way of saying frequency. It's the way it's measured. Sorry, hertz is how it's measured. So if I have 150, then the complement to that is 300. The complement to that is 600. The complement to that is 1200. Which means even though I have this high vibrational 1200 frequency, which may be like, dang, I just bought a house for you and things are moving great, I'm still going to have somewhere in there this 150. It may be very low, because if you're at 1200, right, because it's an octave, 150 is still in the same octave of 1200, it's going to vibrate, but it's not going to be as very strong.
What's an octave then?
An octave is just basically like a doubling of a thing. So like if you do like a piano keyboard, you have a C here and then you have a C here. So when you hit this note, it also vibrates this C even though I'm not playing it. Because they're of the same octave, of the same frequency. It's just a double of it. So even though I'm at a really high note, even though I'm vibrating at a really high range at like 1,000, that means somewhere in this timeline, there's a really low 100 hertz vibration that could be based in fear, anger, depression, could be of the lowness. That's just vibrating. That's just sitting there. It's just there.
Could you also compare that to just math and numbers as just being like, okay, 10 is 10, but it also has 5 and 5, or 4 and 6 and 3 and 7 and...
It has to be along the lines of like a double.
Oh, okay.
So it can't be like a minuscule. So for example, if I'm, let's go to like David Hawkins, like because he's got things like mapped out. One of the ones, I think it was love, was at around 700 of consciousness, 700 hertz at consciousness. If you have a 20 hertz of shame, that doesn't really vibrate because 20 doesn't go into 700 doubling it over and over and over and over and over again. It doesn't go into that. It doesn't work. So which means if you're in a space of love and you're in that consciousness, you don't really have shame. It doesn't sit there. You may have fear. Fear might be along the same lines. Right? But love and shame don't really go together. So when you look at the world in the space of love, you don't really have shame. You don't shame yourself. You're like, I love all parts. You understand and you love equally. So there are some that go together, and it's kind of tricky when you get into that space. But because the reason that it's tricky is because we all have and can feel every single emotion. Now, the way they're just bringing to this to me now, because they're like, well, if I'm in the space of love, of course I can feel shame. Yes. Because you could be still based on having a different patterning and some external drop of water. So if we consider all of ourselves drops of water in this giant ocean that is the world, someone comes in and you allow them to move you energetically, meaning someone comes in that's angry and you're in a space of high vibrational love and you don't know how to transmute their anger that's being projected onto you into a space of love, they're going to bring you down vibrationally to a point where you're going to be angry as well. And then you're going to start a fighting match. Which is why I remember I said this on an episode. You can come at me as loud as you want, as heavy as you want, but I'm going to match you with my vibration, not your vibration. Because your vibration does not determine how I am. Your emotions do not determine how I am. So then you can help transmute that part, them. Help bring them up higher or come to some sort of middle space where there's acceptance and neutrality. And then you can have a conversation. There's spaces to use anger, because anger, I think, and David Hawkins fits right before you get to neutrality. It fits right in this space of consciousness. What I'll do, in the episode, I'll send you a photo. We can kind of have it up so people can see it, because we don't have anywhere place to like cast it. But understanding this part of you and utilizing this, understanding your emotions and your frequency, allows you to traverse the world and traverse people in a way where you can start to lessen the lower vibrations and get more of the higher vibrational frequency that you're searching for. So that's why I talk about the inner work. The inner work is going through understanding where my shame lies. Can I bring forgiveness to that? Which means you're bringing it to a neutral point. You're bringing these spaces of old shame that you've had. Maybe you did something in the past. Maybe you just feel shameful about an act or an addiction and you're running into that. Or maybe you're really fearful for I don't know, you have a fear of spiders. I don't know, you have like some sort of trauma. Your fear of abuse. So you get into like relationships and you're afraid of being hit and hurt again, or you start to develop these things. And yes, these are deep traumas. However, they all work the same vibrationally. They all work the same in frequency. Which means if you can bring it to a neutral point first by not only forgiving yourself and the other party, depending on what it was, then you can internally go, okay, ooh, I'm starting to finally accept that. How can I turn this into love now? It's going to love for yourself, because when you get into the, I'm really speaking to the example I just gave of like abuse. You have to turn that into self. Turn that into self-love, self-care, because I'm sure at that point you were trying to just alleviate whatever emotion they were going on, and you're trying to match their frequency or unmatch their frequency, or just be a complement to whatever they're vibrating, whether it be anger or whatever. You were just assimilating to a different frequency. It's almost like it's like gravitational pulls, right? If someone is trying to put you into their orbit and you're fighting it, you don't really want to. How do you change that and move out of it? That goes with understanding how you are. Which is why sometimes you literally have to separate yourself to be like, I don't know where I'm at when I'm with you. My thoughts are completely gone. Like, I've had those experiences where I can't, every time I think of something or want to do something, for some reason, I go to, how are they going to react? Right? And then you live in a space of reacting to other people. You are a people pleaser. You are, going into only thinking of how the external world makes you feel. You're not thinking about how the internal world and how personal things make you feel. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And when you understand that, that means that you're allowing your frequency to be, and your emotional state to be, governed by the external world. We think that the external world placates to how we feel. So if the external world is showing us fear and anger, then our internal world must be along those lines, and anything we do has to try and alleviate what's going on in our external world. Right? So the trick, I guess, the way to do it is so simple. It's really, really easy. Feels like it's really hard because not a lot of us do it. You sit with yourself. That's it. You sit with yourself. Ask yourself these questions. When you start finding yourself asking questions about how the external world's going to react, you know you're not in a place of your own highest good. You're trying to placate. You're trying to please. Sure, at some point you can't be like, well, I don't know. I love killing. I love doing these things. It's so much fun. Right? If it doesn't use anybody else or put anybody else in some detriment, then you should be free to kind of do that for yourself. What I mean is, obviously, if you're going around, I don't know,
using and abusing people.
Exactly. Using people for your own good, for your own benefit, that karma is going to bite you in the ass. That karma gets you life in prison.
I have a question for you.
I have an answer, hopefully.
Why does like some karma take longer to hit people than like some things? Does it depend on
the size of
the intention and stuff?
Yeah. Because when you have it's almost like when you are looking for like a large manifestation, right? When you want so much, but you're going by the laws of the universe. There's a couple things. some of these people could be in a vibration where they believe nothing can hurt them, nothing can happen to them.
Oh, that's very true. Yeah, because it's almost like that high vibration of like full belief.
Correct.
Damn.
And so when you're doing
point.
things that are against and not of the highest good of other people, and you're in that vibration, you're using all your willpower that you have. It could be very stressful on the person, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because they're always trying to overcome small little things to make sure that nothing happens to them, no one can touch them. I have all these things in place, blah, 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 blah. I'm utilizing, manipulating people in the system.
Dang.
And so it takes a little bit for the universe to be like, okay, well, it's going to come a lot harder the more you're running from this. The more you're running, the more you're running.
More momentum.
You're running. Yeah, it's just building. It's like a tsunami. It's like a tidal wave. Can't run from it. Same thing with your emotions. You sit with anger. You repress your anger. One of these days, you're just going to flip a switch. And it's happened. You know, you hold on to it, you repress it. There's good ways to utilize anger. It's a helpful emotion. But understand when you're angry and don't repress it. Allow yourself to feel it. One thing I want to encourage with this is, and actually show you and help you understand, is transmuting the energy. For this example, if we were talking about sitting in a space of a lower space of shame, I'm going to speak on this because I've been here. We have to understand what our shame is doing to us. So we look at what thoughts are bringing shame. I can't believe I did that, or man, I'm really not good at that. I knew I shouldn't have said that. It's you making me feel some sort of way. Like, understand what you're saying that brings the shame and where you feel it in your body. If you're feeling shameful, humiliation, you're living in that space, start to recognize. You see, same thing with any depression, any sadness, grief, anxiety. Start to ask yourself, or start to just be aware of how this energy and this thought process, because this thought process is a frequency that you're emanating every day throughout your thoughts. The crazy thing is with the human brain and the human heart, you could go like this. You could be really low in a low space of shame and then immediately switch to really high. I'm in love. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's been so long. Love, yes, love. Oh, and then something happens and immediately brings you down into grief. You could be in love with life, and then out of nowhere, a family member dies. You go right down into space of grief. You lost somebody. Low vibration. So we have to understand that we're always going to have those highs and lows. Okay? One thing, acceptance of that. But to be able to transmute it, okay, you're sitting with that. You're understanding what the cause was that puts you in this vibration. How I'm keeping myself in this vibration. That's the key. How am I keeping myself here? What questions am I saying to myself? What statements am I saying to myself? What actions am I doing that seem to not bring any other higher vibration? I'm just sitting around watching Netflix, eating junk foods that are also affecting my body's frequency. Yes, food affects your frequency. Lower vibrational foods, any processed foods, high processed foods, dairy, cheese actually is an opiate when it's combined. Gluten and cheese, gluten and dairy. So like bread and cheese, why we love like sandwiches and a lot of gluten, like cheesy pasta.
Yeah,
it's a drug. It's the same receptors as like cocaine or
I didn't know that.
Methamphetamines. And heroin.
That's insane.
So like you're literally like drugging yourself. A warm milk before bed, yeah. It can freaking knock you out. I'm like, right?
What?
Yeah, it's processed. So these sort of things start to affect your internal, actual physical frequency. All the organisms that got to eat that, your microorganisms, your biome, that's all eating that, bringing it up. And then what? When that digests it and tries to take nutrients, all those things that could be processed nutrients and things that it can take, it's going to be like, well, I got to give the body something to function, to get the blood flow, get the heart pumping. all this stuff. They're moving it through the lower intestines, and then your body, then that starts to permeate through your whole body. So if we're eating heavy processed, why you see bloatedness. Those people are slow. Low vibration. You're slow. You're wide. You're big. Some people have a fast metabolism. Could be able to take that off. They can handle that, but they also just feel very lethargic. And eventually, over time, you get to that place, right? Now, so you understand what you're eating, what you're putting into your body, how you are keeping yourself in that state. Then once you are aware of that, and here's the thing, I should have said this very first, focus on one thing at a time. Don't try and be like, I'm going to take care of my shame, my anger, my grief, my sadness, all this stuff. I feel like I'm trying to transmute it all. No. Understand one thing and work on one thing at a time. So when you're sitting and you're focusing on these things, then you go to the very highest vibration process. Then you start to ask, okay, if this is how I'm keeping myself there, then let's start at the very top. How do I want to live my life? What's my intention? How do I desire to live? Right? You know that. So then you get that picture down, because you're aware of all the things you're doing now. You're aware of how you're keeping yourself in this low vibration. You're aware of everything that you're doing that keeps you stuck. And then you have this point where here's where I desire to be. I felt this before. I've been able to feel like just love, experience that on a grand scale. I've had a space of peace, or I felt acceptance before and joy, and I really like to live my life that way, like that a lot. Granted, it won't be all the time because things happen, but if you are able to understand yourself, you can transmute it faster and go right back to that place. Right? Someone dies in the family. My uncle had died. I was in a shambles. But immediately I went, I know he's still there vibrationally because I can hear him. His jokes, his mannerisms, his love, his warmth, and immediately went back to a space of joy, of just reminiscing on how much he really cared about the people he loved and his life. And I was like, I'm still maybe in the grieving process, right? And shock at the point. I mean, sure, it took me a little bit, but I sat with it and then came to terms and was like, no, he's always going to be there. So just a brief example, but then you get into the place of how I desire to live. And when you get to that place, then you start to ask, what things can I do to keep me in line with that intention? And when I'm in this space, it could be different for each time. So when you're in a space of, let's say, shame, let's go there. Let's say you're telling yourself, man, I'm such an idiot. I should never have done that to that person or said that. I feel so stupid. You're talking yourself down. Okay, well, if you go back to this space of, how can I live my, let's say your desire was to live your life with a sense of self-love, with a sense of love for myself and others. You desire to kind of have more love in your life all the time. We'll just keep it really simple. Then you have to ask yourself, you try and catch yourself in the moment. Now that you brought your awareness to how you're keeping yourself in that vibration, then you catch yourself in that moment and ask yourself, are these thoughts aligning with how I desire to live my life? And you just do a quick yes or no. No? Okay. Then what do I need to do to change it? How can I reorganize or reshape this feeling? And I'm not saying that you're going to do it right away. Like, if you've always told yourself that you're stupid and lived in a space of shame, it's going to take you a while to increase your frequency. Because constantly, I mean, one drop of water, will ripple a little bit, but eventually it fades. And eventually it goes to a low vibration. So the more drops of water that keep coming in, the easier it is to change the frequency, change the vibration. Which is why when you have the octave and you're doubling it, it takes a while to get there. It It takes a while to double it, to get to the very highest vibration, especially when you're at a low vibration like shame. So what this is going to do, though, is help you keep in line. So you're counteracting what you're doing to keep yourself in a low vibration with how you desire to live your life. And I do this with coaching clients. I call it a life anchor. It's literally a life anchor. It's the intention that how you desire to live your life. Some people could just be, I just want to live my life peacefully with my friends, family. That's all I want. That's great. Okay, then make sure that the things that you're doing, the things that you're saying to yourself, align with how you're able to bring more love for yourself, so that way you can bring more love for your family. How you can bring peace to yourself, so you can bring the peace with your family and have those moments and be present in those moments, instead of talking yourself down or being judgmental on your family or friends and things like that. So that then goes back to the very beginning of when we talked about the law of vibration. The more that you work on your internal and being able to transmute these low vibrations to higher vibrations of how you desire to live, the more your external reality will emanate the higher vibrations, and the like more love, more opportunities to be in spaces that are peaceful, that actually bring you joy, that make you laugh, that you get all these opportunities that start to open up in the world. Friends might ask you to go places, or someone you meet might be exactly the best friend that you're looking for, or like, oh my God, you got this great job opportunity that allows me to travel, or allows me to really connect with people or help people. I'm looking for something like this, right? So as you start to do that, you start to open up to opportunities, and your life starts to open up and move in different ways. So that way you can live more peacefully, if that's your intention. I'm only using that for the sake. Instead of, when you're in that lower vibration, things are constantly going wrong. You may get small little blips of high energy, but everything seems to be going against you. You're struggling both with the people around you. It's constant arguments day in and day out. You're dealing with physical problems. You're dealing with, after a while, your joints start to hurt. Your body starts to hurt. You start to get functions. You're going to the doctor a bunch. Then then it just spirals, right? Because we're not understanding how to shift the internal mindset so we can shift our external reality. It's all works together. That's basically vibration and frequency, sound and frequency. Sound, I know we said sound, but sound really, when we're talking about it, like music and those kinds of things, we'll dive a little bit deeper on that. I really wanted to hit home on frequency and emotions, and how it affects the body, and how it affects your emotions, and then how it affects your external reality.
That was a beautiful breakdown, dude.
Thank you.
Got
anything? Are you trying to?
I think it's a good closing point, but I did have a question, or I don't know if it's a question, but so when you're in those lower vibrational states, because like the way I think about it is you're shifting your belief system. So when you're in it, let's just use shame as an example, because we were using that earlier.
Yeah.
So like, let's say you're trying to overcome shame and guilt. Are you trying to convince yourself, because you're shifting your belief, to believe something else, to become something different, or whatever, becomes something different? But like,
No.
would you?
It's not a space of convincing yourself of something otherwise. It's a space of coming to acceptance that I have this in me, and understanding how you react to that emotion, how you react to that frequency. Because you could be when you're in that space of shame, you could just be in it and not know it, right? And you're not bringing awareness to it. You're not trying to do anything. You're just sitting there living in it, and then maybe the external, and then you're relying on the external world to give you this sort of joy. You're like pushing yourself to do things, and so many people are like, I do all these fun things throughout my day. I have this great job, blah, blah, but then I get home and I just want to kill myself. I don't want to be here anymore. Like, I don't get it. How do I manage? It's like, well, because you're repressing your awareness of how you are and your actual emotions. You repress it all and you hide it away, and you try to do other things externally to fix it. That's a Band-Aid. That's all it is. It's a Band-Aid. Instead of understanding how I am in this emotion. Not automatically going to, how can I fix this right away? And accepting that I have those emotions and they're going to come and go. Because we live in a world of duality. We live in a world where we have high vibrational love frequencies and we have low vibrational anger, fear frequencies. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I did want to go over an example of like how you would personally transmute something, like what if you're having like a confrontation with someone? Because I liked that you were explaining that you can change like a situation, because like if someone's coming at you with like anger or something, and then like you can like help them also see things differently and like transmute. Like I just want to like, how would you go about like battling that frequency that someone's coming at you with, like a negative frequency, or I guess how would you transmute that?
So let's use the example of just like an argument of like anger coming out from miscommunication. Because if we get into a space of like heavy anger and it turns to like physical abuse, there's not much you can do besides literally leaving the situation. And sometimes even that's difficult. So that you literally have to reach out for help. Like you can't just internally take care of that, right? Maybe a little later you can take care of like the internal trauma that I was given, but I digress. So when we get into like the space of like miscommunication, and there's someone coming at you like yelling, why didn't you do the dishes? I had this all day, blah, but you never do this. And, I am always the one having to clean. They're coming at you with all this stuff. It's always the deep breath, recognize where you're at. Let them go off. I would just let them go. Like, let them just keep yelling. Because they're not solving this. There's nothing that's being solved here. And as soon as you get a space to interject, I always, well, not always, because I don't really get these situations much more, to be honest. They never really arise. It's only arised like maybe once in the past couple of years. But the way to handle that, which I could have just totally put myself on blast by saying it doesn't happen that much, but I don't live in a space of anger because I'm able to communicate. I take a deep breath, literally in front of them. Just because that also shows, okay, there's a lot going on. They see the bodily of like, breathe, simmer, calm, like nothing's being solved. And then I'll usually own up to, if it's something like the dishes, like I haven't done that, I'll be like, yeah, you're right. If there's a space of acceptance, we have to think about ourselves first. Did I really not do the dishes? Have I not helped out in a while? Like, is this coming to be a big thing? Like, okay, I get it. Like, I'm sorry. I'll come with that. I'll be like, yeah, you're right. I really haven't been doing this or haven't been doing that. However, it did not need for it to come out in this sort of anger. Is there something else going on right now in your life that these things just triggered it? You don't have to go into these things just triggered it, but I'd be like, yeah, take responsibility if it is something that you did. If it's not something that you did, then it has to be along the lines of take a deep breath to collect yourself, because almost all the time you want to start another scream match when you feel like you got one up on someone, or you feel like, no, I know you're this and you're this and you're that, and you're like trying to put them in their place, right? That's not going to solve anything either. So we have to bring them down to a space of calmness, which is why you let them fuse out. Because anger only lasts for so long. So when someone's just real angry, you just let them go. And sometimes I'll just like, okay, I'll breathe, okay. Yep, all right. And then I will explain my side. You know, this is maybe there. I'm sorry if there's a miscommunication. This is what I was going through. This is what going through my head, explaining how I was understanding a situation, and literally going, can we come to some sort of solution together? It just has to be some sort of conscious. If they come back with more yelling, then you have to again reset and understand that they may not be in a place to reach some sort of resolution at this time frame. So you could also, we need to table this. Or I always go, have you eaten? Have you done this yet? Have you eaten food? Are you hungry? Are you tired? What happened throughout your day? Like, did something else happen? Especially if it has nothing to do with you and they're just yelling at you just to yell at you. Like, is everything okay? What's really going on? I try to target it right at the source, because then it turns it away from, and it starts bringing some sort of introspection on the person that's in that anger state. Because if you just fight it right back, all you're going to do is just blow it up, and it's just going to be milled, because it's the same frequency, right? And when two wavelengths of the same frequency meet, it amplifies it further, right? So you want to kind of drown it out and override till it kind of comes to a space of neutral point, so we can kind of reset and recalibrate. So always come with love. Always kind of come with, is there a misunderstanding? Did I actually, find where you are at first? If they're completely yelling at you, does that help?
Mm-hmm.
I think does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Part of me feels like it doesn't.
No, I
just to me, I'm like, as I was explaining it, I like sit myself outside. I'm like, I don't know. Part of me feels like I might have lost a lot of people on that one.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I followed it, and I think it's helpful.
It's hard without like a real life scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I like the simple stuff. Yeah, because that's like roommate situations, family.
I mean, Dalton and I literally had it the other day. But I was just, I basically, that's exactly what I said. I was like, dude, I'm sorry. You're right. I was like, I appreciate you for doing all these things. And like, I appreciate you bringing it up. Appreciate you saying something. Some people won't say anything and let it spill over into, then it's a real fight, a real argument. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right, you know what? You're right. I'll help you. Appreciate you saying something, bring it to our attention instead of just sitting on it and letting it mull over, and then it's sitting and eating you away.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather us get this energy out, so that way we can bring in more joy, more love, instead of it there's this underlying like, God, you haven't done shit in a while. So
yeah,
that is going to conclude our episode on frequency, law of vibration, the emotions in your frequency states, and little kind of tools and things to help you maneuver lower vibrations to bring you up to a higher vibration. Freya's had enough. I think she actually really likes that cup because it was under the couch. Anyways, thank you all for tuning in today on the Soully Living Podcast.
Thanks, guys. Peace.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Swimming with Sepsi. If this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and follow us on our YouTube channel, or listen on all platforms or wherever you get your podcasts. Any support is greatly appreciated. You can find us on our Patreon page at patreon.com/swimmingwithsepsi. You can also follow us on Instagram at swimmingwithsepsi. And if something did arise today, maybe you need some clarification or want some help or just need some guidance and don't know where to go, feel free to reach out to me via email, swimmingwithsepsi@gmail.com, or you can find my website at SoullyLiving.com, where I offer coaching packages, readings, and things of that nature. Again, thank you for tuning in. Very grateful. Namaste. And we'll find you on the next episode of Swimming with Sepsi.